Debbie, happy Friday and good morning to you and everyone that's joining us. We've got a good group coming in right now. We'll give them just a few seconds to
Sure.
come into the
Is
webinar with us,
is
Debbie.
it still February? It's the last Friday of February, right?
We've blown through 2 months of the year. Can you believe it?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's going
Yeah.
fast, going fast. So, I hope you guys had a great first couple of months. The good news is, though, for many of you, your horribly tough, challenging weather is over, and you're going to start to get better and hit your stride as we start to glide towards the spring market.
Debbie, that's optimistically thinking. I did a 3 mile walk in 30 degrees this morning. So,
Uh, well,
but the sunshine is coming out. So I'm looking forward to
hopefully
warmer
no,
weather.
yeah, hopefully for everyone here, no more blizzards or ice storms. That's it.
That's true. Very true. Debbie, I know you have a lot of slides today. We're going to get right
Yes.
into it. I'm just going to encourage everybody today. A lot of you are taking a lot of notes on every slide. I really want to kind of challenge you today to, you know, leave for yourself a little bit of room on those notes. I would really just say make one or two, maybe three at the most action items, something you can take away from today. Don't overwhelm yourself. There's a lot in these slides. We'd like you to just walk away with one or two things you can change and improve in your business today. And that's really our hope, Debbie.
Yeah, and this topic is so important, and I'll tell you why I'm so passionate about it. I see agents that work so hard. They do the dials, Shaun.
Yeah.
They talk to lots of people. They actually get themselves to the table, but then they don't win the deal.
Yep.
And if I could pick one of the biggest flaws in our industry, I think it's mastering the language of sales. It's how to transition to the close, how to get past the no, but how to do that without being some slimy, greasy pitch master, right? Because nobody
Yep.
wants to hear it and nobody wants to be that. So when we talk about sales language and persuasive language, we think of it in the sense that, people are a puzzle. And if we can get in their zone, understand who they are, what they need, whoops, there we go. Oh, we have to have our little disclaimer there, and I'll tell you guys
Yep.
why. What they need and what will motivate them to move forward. Because, quite frankly, even your own mother who loves you, she's not going to buy a house if she doesn't want to buy a house, right? So, the reason we put this disclaimer up is you all know that the great thing about Landvoice is it has scrubbed for do not call. That is important. So, when you're doing other outreaches out there in the community, just be sure that you're following those do not call rules, which also apply to email and to texting, and that you're reaching out to people that have either opted in and engaged with you, or they're not on the do not call, because then you feel really comfortable too, because you don't feel that you're going to be breaking any rules, but also calling people that don't want the phone call, right? So words matter. What you say and how you say it. And when I say how you say it, tonality, right, is really critical. There's a book that's a favorite of Ben and I. It's called Simply Said. And you might want to type that in the chat for them, Shaun, because I can't
I'll
type
do
it
it.
time. And the author is Sullivan. And in that book, very small book, fabulous book that I really would recommend you all get it, because it talks about how to say things in tonality and how to ask the right questions. But one of the things that's very critical is when you speak to someone, you can control that tonality. But sometimes when you're in a hurry and you're writing an email or you're sending a text and you don't go back and reread before you push send, it doesn't come across in the tone that you meant it to. So, and then it can blow up and cause a problem, and they read it over and over and over again, and they get really upset. So be very careful, read those emails, read those texts to watch that tonality. Now, people say this all the time. I just like to have organic conversations. I don't want to have any, sales talk like for a buyer, a seller, for my calls and lead generation. I just want to be organic. The problem with that is that then you're very focused and very worried about what you're going to say. You're not paying attention. You're not reading the people. Or the flip side of that, what you say is kind of bad. It's kind of rough, it's not the best choice of words. Now, after decades in the real estate industry and 100,000 coaching sessions and hundreds of webinars, I guess you could say I can be, quote, organic. But it's really not organic. It's just that I've internalized it to the point that it sounds that way, right? And that's the key. So if you have a predictable process, you have predictable language, you have things you say when X situation happens, it leads to mastery. So I'll give you a perfect example. This is so simple, but someone says to you, and we'll do a little fun thing here. We'll have them type it in the chat box. Let's say someone says to you, I'm not going to move. I'm going to wait 6 months, maybe 8 months. I think I'm just going to wait a bit. And maybe you thought they were a pretty good, seller prospect or even buyer prospect. So
pretty warm prospect, right?
What would be your very next thing that would be the best thing to say? If they say, I'm not going to do anything for, 6 to 8 months. So go ahead and type it in the chat.
Jump in the chat, guys. Yeah. Tell us what you'd say next.
Okay. Perfect. We got a winner right there. See how smart these guys are?
So well said. Yeah.
Tonality, right? So first of all, I always want to acknowledge and approve wherever I can, because we want to stay in that zone of rapport. If we make somebody feel challenged or wrong or judged, then we break rapport. So it's super important. Think of it like walking in a minefield. You don't want to step or say the wrong thing. It's going to blow up that rapport. And persuasion is not likely to occur without rapport. So one of the first things I want to do is I want to acknowledge, and I want to say, Raja, let me make a note of that. So 6 to 8 months. I'm curious. Tell me, what's important for you about waiting 6 to 8 months? So I acknowledge, okay, 6 months. I'm curious. What's important for you about waiting 6 months? Because what I could do, which would be a very bad thing to do, is I could launch into, well, Shaun, this is why now is a better time. This is why. Okay, very salesy, right? And what if he said to me, oh, well, gee, but I can't do anything now because I'm having brain surgery tomorrow and my doctor won't let me. So I looked pretty foolish, right? But if I said to him, what's important for you, now I'm going to find out, is it a condition, I'm having brain surgery, or is it a procrastination? Oh, well, I just think the market will be better. Define that for me, if you will. Tell me a little bit about that. What are you hoping will be better? Well, I'm actually hoping interest rates will be lower. I don't blame you. If I were you, I would be hoping exactly the same thing. What's interesting? I was just on a webinar yesterday, and I can get the slides and share with you that show that it's quite likely the rates are going to be pretty stable throughout the entire year of 2025, and yet prices potentially will increase around 5%. Let me ask a question. If I pull some data for you and we have a really good discussion around that data, would that be helpful? See, I don't want to tell him he's wrong because that's going to shut down my relationship, right? And then I want to look at, and please, guys, we're all friends here, so please know I'm not picking on you. It's just so perfect. Like when Dennis typed in, Okay, why do you say that? See, if you look at that, there's actually nothing wrong with that question at all, right? But you can tell that that seems a little bit judgmental, or like we're challenging them. Okay, why do you say that? Now, even if I try to soften it, okay, why do you say that? I can't, right? It still sounds judgmental. That's why we want to choose those words so carefully, because really Dennis is trying to find out the same thing. And then, Marlena, did you change your mind about selling or buying? Not a bad question, just not the right question in that moment. See, if I start to get more hesitation, if they're super vague with me, then I might say, gosh, Marlena, I'm curious. Have you changed your mind about this next move? See, the tougher the question is, the softer my tonality needs to be. So let's be honest, you all have things you say, but are you saying the right thing at the right time? And you will be more powerful, more confident, and actually you'll have less fear of contacting your qualified contacts and clients if you have better language, right? And Shaun, if they want to be free of worrying about what to say next, practice. Then you can be laser focused. Because here's the thing, some days we're just not feeling it, right? Maybe you had the flu and you're halfway recovered, or
Maybe we're just off that day, right?
you're just off that day, you didn't sleep well, or you just had a deal blow up and you're kind of upset and rattled. But
Yep.
when you have that mastered, you can still perform at a pretty high level. And it streamlines the communication. And it's not just that it increases your productivity. You know what it does? It actually decreases the stress for your customer. They actually feel happier, right? Because there's a saying that a confused mind won't take action. So if we're stressing them out in our conversation, if we're using jargon, real estate jargon that we know, but they don't live in that world every day, or if we're throwing too much info at them at a time, it makes them stressed. And then that feeling of stress, it's attached to you, right? So why isn't everyone a sales language master? Because it's hard, right? It
Really hard. Yep.
takes work. But here's the beauty. Faces change, but the words, the scenarios, the objections, the procrastinations, with a very few tweaks over decades, not much, right? How many of you have been making your outbound conversations and you hear, oh, they're going to carry me out of here in the box? I'm never moving. I've been hearing that since I started calling at 18 years old. So they really don't change. So it's not like you're trying to master this massive body of information. I actually sat down once and wrote down there's about 12 to 13 buyer objections and about 12 to 13 seller objections. And in any given market, you really don't get all of those. Depending on market conditions, you're usually getting about 3 to 5. So start there. Say, what are the 3 to 5 objections or situations that are the most tough for me, for a buyer? Write those down, your 3 to 5 tough ones. What are my 3 to 5 for a seller? Now, those are the ones I need to work on first, right? So you don't have to study everything. And so many of you have great tools, like, if you're part of Place, I know you have listing guides and buyer guides of other brokerages that have given you great information. Sometimes it's as easy as showing them the page and reading the best quote off the page, right? So, simple steps to mastery. Number 1, identify those conversations you intend to master. Focus on one per day. That may work best for you. And David, thank you for typing that in the chat. You're very right. Using the word why, it's just a word I just avoid completely. I try to get that out of my vocabulary, even with my own kids, because when you say to someone, why do you think that? Why are you doing that? It sounds judgmental. So it's confrontational. It'll lead to an argument, or it'll simply lead to excuses. So instead, I would use the word what, right? Right, Shaun?
Yeah, for sure. You've talked about this a lot. I'm glad David mentioned it. I've been guilty of this in my life so much, and I'm glad you bring it up with David because it's the hows and right. We start there with how and what in our questions. And a lot of what you're talking about today are just simple things. When you talk about the book, Simply Said, I want to throw one other one out there. I really like a book called The Slight Edge by
Oh,
Jeff
yes.
Olson. Another really good one that just helps us understand just the simplest things we're doing that sometimes turn a really good conversation into confrontational. And we want to avoid that with these things that you're sharing in these slides today.
Yeah. So a few great words to, avoid the word but. When you say,
Mhm.
yeah, no, that, Shaun, that's a great point. But here's the thing. See, what I just did is I negated what he said. I made him wrong. You know, that's a great thing you said, but you're actually wrong because I'm going to tell you this, right? So get rid of the word
Very
but.
good. Yep.
Instead, just use the word and. That's a good point. And here's also another way we could look at it. See how easy that is? And or and yet. Get rid of the word why and use the word what. So I could say, well, why do you think that? So tell me, what information have you studied, or what is on your mind that's causing you to believe that a market will be better in the next few months? I'd love to hear your thoughts. See, again, just imagine yourself, you're walking in that minefield, the wrong step blows up that rapport. So, a good way to practice at least 20 minutes a day, ideally, right before you start your permission based outreach. That's why lots of you get together in the morning, you do your morning power ups. It also kind of gets you in the game, right? And you know what many people do, Shaun, is they'll take their critical things that they're working on in their sales language and they'll record it in their own voice. I do this, and then I listen to it in the car while I drive or while I'm cooking dinner. And there's this psychological thing that if it's in your own voice, your brain actually internalizes it faster and better.
Debbie, there's a lot of things I love about this presentation, but that's one of them. And something I didn't do for a long time, but just recently have started recording some of my own presentations, and it's amazing how much I'm learning, right, on what needs to kind of be reworked and just kind of refined in the presentation, right? So I love this. I hope everyone's writing that down. Let's record ourselves as we're practicing to check tonality and specifically the words we're using.
I've even seen people that have made flashcards, with the objections. And if they have a, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kid or older, they give them those cards. They're driving them to school or driving around to soccer practice, and they say, hit me, hit me. And they practice in the car with their kids. There's lots of ways you can do it because I know you guys are busy. And the important things, the important conversations that you're going to have, it really makes sense. Like, let's say you're going into a very important offer negotiation today with one of your sellers. Sit down and write it out. What are you going to say? Just write it all out. Then go back and clean it up and shorten it and simplify it. And then read it out loud over and over and over and over again. When you get in that situation, you're going to sound smooth. Now, it's perfectly fine in an important meeting like that to say, but then you could take it and bullet point it. You probably wouldn't want to take the whole script because it'd screw you up. But you could take that, bullet point it. And Shaun, I could say, in preparation for a meeting, I wrote down a few important thoughts and a couple of important questions because I wanted to be well prepared. So you can actually have your crib notes right there. if you need them. Right? So record yourself. You can replay it repeatedly, and then commit to listening to your recording. You get ready for work, you drive. Maybe you're in a car sitting in front of a house waiting for a buyer to show up. And then again, whenever possible, have your notes. And if you have something written down that you're looking to master, it's great if you can actually listen and read at the same time. Think about actors. They get paid a lot of money, but guess what? They have to memorize scripts. And one of the techniques is they read it out loud over and over and over. And they read it faster and faster and faster and faster, because then when they slow down, it sounds very smooth. So
What do you recommend for people that are practicing? I know we can practice with kids in the car, but just grab somebody in the office. That's another thought or idea. Do you have any other thoughts on how to practice
in the
with someone?
office, or, even in this group, type in your name and email and say, I'd love to have a practice partner. And when you practice with whoever you practice, couple of tips. Don't waste time with like a lot of chit chat and stories. Just get right into what you're practicing. Go back and forth together. It's absolutely fine to hit each other with some objections, but don't create these weird and strange objections that probably would never, hardly ever come up, because that's just going to haunt you in your mind. And always at the end of that role play, let your partner end on a win, because we don't want any psychological baggage that you beat each other to death with really crazy, strange objections and you felt like a loser at the end of that role play, right? So don't do that. So again, let them quiz you. They love it. They love it. They think it's so fun. So yeah, find a practice partner, schedule time every week, and really just commit that everything is a routine. I'm going to practice that 15 to 20 minutes a day before I do my outreaches. I'm going to practice before I go on a listing appointment. If you had a listing appointment every day, you would be sharp enough. You might not have to practice, but for most of you, it's hard to get those appointments. So the gaps in between get a little bit rusty, right? So just remember, if you're practicing, focus. And it's fun. Challenge them with those objections. Just avoid the elaborate, and always let them end on a win. Now, once you master your words, now you can really start to work on the energy, the tonality, the mirroring and matching. But just a couple of quick tips. If you're on the phone, only a small percentage of your power and energy gets through that phone line. So you actually have to take it up several notches. Be louder, be stronger, because it waters you down going through that phone, right? So it's something to keep in mind. Smile when you're on the phone, because it comes through that line. I think of it as a thermometer. Whatever their level of energy, or speaking fast or speaking slow, I want to get in sync with them. Maybe stay just a little layer above, just a little above, so my energy pulls them up a little. No judgment in your tone. And if you're confronting a tough issue, soften that tonality. Chris Voss, the hostage negotiator, calls it late night DJ voice. Shaun,
Right.
I understand that you were hoping we would get an over full price offer on your home. I understand. And we're now 4 weeks in, and this is the only offer we've had, and it's full price. So what we need to do now, our next step, we need to accept it. See, calm, smooth, authoritative, and confident, but never arrogant, right? Or pushy.
Difficult topic with little emotion. Calm is really the key there, isn't it?
I think of flatlining my
Mhm.
emotion. And mirroring and matching, fast talkers think slow talkers are dumb. Slow talkers think fast talkers are slimy. So get in sync, right? Get in sync. And just, when you talk too fast, those words run together. So generally, for most of you, calm down, slow down, and just make sure that energy gets through that phone line. And then stand up, for more energy, and you can move around. It's also, I heard a cardiologist, a friend of mine said, sitting in your chair all day is actually the same as smoking for your heart. So,
The new smoking. Yep, that's right.
so stand up, and then you can ask. Chris Voss said that when you're asking questions in any given situation, you can probably ask about 14 before it feels like too much. Start with the bigger questions first and soften them. I'm curious. I was wondering, may I ask? Please tell me more. Always coming from that tone of curiosity and always a downswing at the end of your sentences. Because if I said, Shaun, so what we need to do next is sign the offer, that sounds like weak, right? So you can karate chop your hand down and then beware of the reflex no. Because when you can get past that no with great questions and energy, you'll sell more in less time. And you don't have to feel bad about it, right, guys? Because you're really showing up as this energetic, positive advisor. And Shaun, really quick, I read the other day that some salespeople, this is kind of funny. I didn't write this, so I'm just telling you what they said. Some salespeople, most, work as if they work at Taco Bell. What's the order? They're order takers. And
Process oriented. Yep.
look up the word or the definition for agent, just agent in general. It's someone who it gets change going, specific action, makes change happen. The only way we can do that, though, is to get them to trust you, to open up to you. And the best way to do that is be an awesome communicator. So, guys, if you need some help, think it's time for a coach, scan that code. I'll talk to you. We'll see what's up, see what we can do for you. But fun topic. So I hope they go and think about what they say the rest of the day.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful training. A couple just real quick final thought on my side is none of us are born as perfect prospectors or with the perfect listing presentation. And we have to kind of remind ourselves. I tell my boys all the time, they play a lot of basketball and they weren't born being professionals. It's just repetition. And so let's get the practice in, saying the right things at the right time. Just like you said in this training, those are my final thoughts, Debbie.
All right, guys. Well, hey, have a good weekend. Talk to you soon.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys.